Hello everyone, and welcome back to this Autopilots education channel. Really good to have you back. Today we are going to be doing a video on the brand new Airbus A380 by fly-by-wire, and I've been so looking forward to flying this thing and making another video for you guys. It's special for many different reasons. Firstly, I think like everyone, been looking forward to flying the biggest commercial airliner in the world on Microsoft Flight Simulator, but also as well I've been flying this aircraft in the real world for about 1 year now, and before that I was flying the A320, and yeah, now I'm on the A380. Absolutely loving it, flying all over the world and getting loads of really cool experience, and yeah, I'm very grateful to be in the position that I am. And today we're going to be looking at the 380 in a little bit of depth, talking about the start procedures, the taxi and to takeoff, and then hopefully in another video I'll be making for you, we'll do a cruise, approach and landing for you as well. But today is going to be just focusing on the departure. We're going to be flying, doing a flight from Doha to Adelaide. And yeah, we'll just talk through basically highlighting what some of the systems are, what works on the fly-by-wire and what doesn't work, and yeah, and if there's any questions, please do comment down below, or anything you think I've missed, please comment down below. And but yeah, really excited to dive in. So let's begin. Okay, so once you get into the cockpit, this is what you can expect to see. This is what it will look like. Most of the times it will be powered with the batteries on, and also the external ground power connected, or the APU will be running. And first things first that we'll probably do is we will do a quick cockpit security check. So yeah, checking basically all the latches, little doors, any gaps in the cockpit, just basically just looking for something that probably shouldn't be there. And for example, we'll check in the life vest compartments. There's a bin there that we can remove, have a look down there, and moving back the seats, checking there, and yeah, various different places basically. We'll also check that we should have 5 pins here. And then afterwards is going to be the first officer in the right hand seat, and they're basically going to check the thrust levers to make sure that they're idle, check the engine start selector to make sure it's in the normal position, that the landing gear is down, and that the wipers are both set to off. Once they've done that, we'll turn off the batteries and bring up the DC page so we can see that they're off there. And then on the overhead panel, we're going to go up to the battery part here, and we're basically just going to check the voltage of the batteries, and we're looking for at least 25 volts on each. So 28, so that's all good. So that's been checked, and then afterwards we'll turn the batteries back on, and once again on the page, or ElecDC page, we want to make sure that each battery is below 60 amps and decreasing within 10 seconds. Once you've done that, head over to the ADIRs, and they're all off today, so we're just going to switch them to nav and begin the alignment process. And then finally, just making sure that we're happy with all the lights. So on the 380, the lighting panel is here. Because it's bright today, this is absolutely fine, and this will do. And then that's done, and we are ready to get into our seats. So today I'll be flying from the left-hand seat in the captain's seat, and I'll be doing the roles of PF and PM, so it's quite a high workload, but we'll take things nice and slowly so we don't forget anything. Okay, so so that's pretty cool, because there's a bit of a glare should be able to close these. Doesn't really reduce the glare, unfortunately. Let's see if it does it from this side. No. Okay, doesn't matter. But anyway, that's just to show you, especially when it's hot outside in Doha, it gets very hot. So yeah, we will keep these closed just to keep out some of the heat. So then afterwards, we'll begin our setup, and I like to use the acronym PACOAP, and yeah, I'll use various acronyms during the flight just to make sure I've done everything. So yeah, PACOAP, that's PCOAAP, and the first P is power. So basically there is a laptop here, and we need to make sure that there are 2 green lights on this laptop. If there aren't, then we'll need to maybe switch it off and then back on again. And then afterwards, we will head to the CCD and keyboard. This basically, by turning these on, we will turn on the cursor, which is this little ball here, and the keyboard as well, and we can use this for the MFD, which is this screen here. So that is that's first part of P, and then also we'll be going on the OIT, and OIT is basically split into 2 parts. We've got the NSS avionics and the flight ops, and we'll sign in on both, and then also we will set up just we'll start our takeoff applications, our charts, which you'll find on the flight ops page. We'll also have a library with the FCOM, the MELs, and all other documents that we need to refer to. That's all in the flight ops part. The NSS avionics is more used for communications with the company. It can be used to get some weather for us. It can be used to decide fuel figures, and really importantly, we use that to receive our load sheets, and we can get certainly more than 1 load sheet, usually 2, sometimes even more, depending on if there's changes in the load. But yeah, we'll use it to access the load sheet, which we'll then put into the FMS and the performance. So that's very important. Unfortunately, on the fly-by-wire, the NSS avionics or the flight ops, neither of them work at the moment. I'm sure later on in later developments they will come, but that is about it for now. So that is P, and then afterwards we're going to move on to C, which is company flight plan request. So you're going to go to the init page, and firstly I guess we check the status, and we'd also make sure that we can see that it's an A380-800. We look at the idle and performance factor, if the database is in date, which at the moment it's not, but we can't swap it for any other one. So yeah, we check that, and then init, and then we hit company flight plan request, and we can see it says uplink insert in progress, and it's basically getting your flight plan from SimBrief. So yeah, you want to make sure that you have one. If you in the real world, it will communicate with the company, and you'll be able to uplink the flight plan from there. Cool, so we'll see received company flight plan, insert, and here we go. Doha to Adelaide, alternate is Melbourne. Call sign is going to be Airbus 123, cruising at 330, and temperature, cost index, and tropopause are all correct. So that's all we need to do for the flight plan right now. So that's P, that's C. O is the OANS, which is the onboard air navigation system, and basically this is what it looks like. So again, you need a Navigraph subscription for this, and you're basically going to click these arrows here, and you just need to check the validity again. Again, 4th of October, okay. It's currently not in date, but yeah, you want to make sure that that's in the right date. That's all you're doing there. So that's O. So PCO. Now A is aircraft. So for aircraft, we're going to do a few things. Firstly, we're going to press and hold the recall push button. So the recall push button is usually, it's not on here, but recall last is. So just press and hold that. 1, 2, 3. Making sure that no ECAM appears here. If it does, we'll have to address it. And then we are looking at 4 things. We're going to be looking at the logbook, the MEL, the aircraft's MSN differences, and any OEBs. So this will go through together as a crew. Basically looking at through the logbook any previous history of various, maybe it has a history of some faults, or there may be some MELs or CDLs that have been raised, any notes from engineering. We'll also be making sure that the daily inspection has been done, that everything is signed, and any oil quantity has been uplifted, and the fuel is correct as well. So we check through all that, checking through the technical status of the aircraft. Then for the MELs or CDLs, we'll then go into our OIT and apply those MELs or CDLs, read through them, and do any operational procedure or talk about any operational procedure that's required. For the aircraft MSN differences, well, it depends how many aircraft there are in your fleet, but this is again something we just talk about if there's anything that we need to do differently for this kind of aircraft. And OEBs, again, this is given to us by Airbus. OEBs stand for Operational Engineering Bulletins, and it's basically if we get an ECAM, depending if the OEB applies to the ECAM, we'll need to make sure that we do the OEB checklist before the ECAM actions, or combined with the ECAM actions. It depends on the OEB, and yeah, it depends on the aircraft as well. But I'm not going to dive too much into that. That's more type rating stuff. Today we're just looking at how to set it up and what we do in the real world. So that's PCOA, and the second A is APU and engine fire test. APU and fire test, we will basically, there's one button which tests the APU, engine 1, engine 2, engine 3, engine 4. So we'll just make sure that all these push buttons are in, and then we'll press and hold, and we can see that everything is lit up here. So once we do that, we'll also be expecting to see the ECAM for the all the fire alerts, and also there'll be a fire sign on all these engine master switches. After that, we can consider starting the APU if necessary. So we'll do that today. Usually you would leave it a little bit later, but we'll start that now. So that's PCOAA, and now it's finally P, which stands for performance. So now the flight crew would calculate the takeoff weight using they'd agree on the weather conditions that they're going to use for the performance calculation. They'd agree on the takeoff weight that they're going to use for the performance calculation, and also the runway and the runway intersection. Once they've done that, they'll cross-check everything, and that's basically about it. So the takeoff performance application is found in the flight ops on the OIT. But unfortunately we don't have that, and there's actually no takeoff application on the iPads here. So I believe that there is something on the OFP, so I'll have to check that for when we need to use those figures. But for now, we can either write them down, or as long as we cross-check them and they're correct, then that's all we need to do now. So once we've done that, it is time for the pilot monitoring to go and do their walk around. So before we do that, there are a few things that we need to do. So first things first, we're going to check the hydraulic levels, make sure that they are sufficient, which they are. We're going to check the door pressure, and we can't see that there, and that is so we're going to check the cockpit and cabin pressure on the door page, and they are above minimum. And finally, what we're going to do is we're going to head on the overhead panel. We're going to head on the overhead panel to the FADEC ground power push buttons, and we're going to switch them all on. And we're going to bring up the engine page and just have a look at the engine oil quantities. Now, the engine oil quantity required depends on the length of the flight, and also depends on the aircraft. So I can't give you an exact figure right now. Obviously, them being at 0 quarts is wrong. That's just an air, but that's a sim glitch. But you basically say, okay, this is the amount that we need, and this is what we've got. And provided that it's either at or above the required amount, then you're good to go. If it's not, then you speak to engineering and get that oil quantity topped up. But more times than not, it is fine. Cool. So then, on top of that, you're also checking you want to come here to make sure that the brake pressure is above 3,500 psi, and the accumulator pressure is in the green. And if it's not in the green, then you will press this Acus reinflate, and that will push that needle into the green. It doesn't actually work on here, but yeah, that's what you need to do. So then afterwards, you'll check that the ground spoilers are disarmed and that the flaps are stowed, and that the parking brake is either set or off. And if it's off, then you need to make sure that the chocks are in place and that the ground crew know about that. So that is that. Then the first officer, in this case, or pilot monitoring, will go and do the walk around, and then it is left for pilot flying to continue the setup of the cockpit. So we'll look at that now. So pilot flying, when setting up the cockpit, will start on the overhead panel. So moving to the overhead panel, the first thing that we do is extinguish all white lights. So turning all the lights off on the fuel pumps, the crew supply, and there's also one up here. And then basically similar to what we did on the 320, we'll work left to right. So we'll start on the left hand side, and we're just making sure that everything is where it should be. So we'll start the recorder ground control can come on. This does not work, but that's fine. The captain and purser switch should be set to captain person, not captain. Moving up, we want to make sure that the ADIRs are obviously in nav and aligned. The probe window heat is set to auto. The ELT is armed, and that all the circuit breakers are pushed in and that none have been tripped. If they are tripped or pulled out, we need to inform engineering. It might be that they've done that and that they're going to push it in shortly, but yeah, it's something that we need to inform them of. Cool. Moving over to the middle then, the strobe light can come to auto. The beacon stays off, nav light can come on. All these other lights are fine for now. The no mobile can come to auto. Emergency exit light can be armed, and the annunciator dim is when you use it in night. Bright is good for now. Engine start selector is in normal. Cross bleed is auto. Airflow is in normal. Cockpit temperature will set to about the 10 o'clock position. The cabin, so this is cabin air. So basically, by setting it on purser select, it means that the cabin crew can control the temperature in the cabin on the FAP. So we don't want to be selecting it in here, just leave it to them. Cool, moving up then, the generators obviously will have a fault light on because the engines have not been started. Everything else is where it should be. Trim tank feed is in auto, and everything else is fine. These can come back off now. Cool, amazing. I'm moving to the right hand side finally. So again, so everything is where it should be. With the cargo air conditioning, this is used for your if you have certain temperature requirements for some cargo that you might carry. Now, when you're flying long haul, especially when you're flying long haul, you're going to be taking all kinds of cargo with you, and you know, it might be live animals to perishable items like food to, you know, even human remains. You can get all sorts of stuff, and also all these things require temperature, the temperature to be at a certain temperature. So it's so let's say for this one, this can actually be switched to off in the real world, but let's say they want it to keep it at 5 degrees, and the rear one between 15 and 25. So that's what it will look like there. Obviously, make sure that the prims and the secs are where they should be on, and this RMP can come on. And if you have someone in the jump seat, then you can configure it for them if you'd like. The CVR test should be pushed once, and that's all you need to do there. And then once again, making sure that the circuit breakers are in. Moving down then, you're going to come here to the switching panel, and basically make sure that everything's in normal, unless you have an MEL, which says it shouldn't be. But yeah, you want to make sure everything's normal. The ISIS, very, very useful instrument, especially if you lose other sources of like your attitude indicator. But also you want to be making sure that the altitude is showing. It's got the speed scale, QNH, you're happy with the brightness. You can use a mode. Wow, that's pretty cool. And oh yeah, the LS push button works as well. And you want to make sure that you'll set the QNH there eventually. But that's all good for now. Landing gear gravity extension. So I'm sure you remember on the A380 it used to be a big cog, like a big sort of wheel here. And now it's just it's actually just basically this little switch, but it's guarded, of course. Make sure it's off and guarded. Moving along, this is your clock here, and you can check that the time and the date are correct. But if you want to see the date, just press and hold the date push button. You can set the GPS, so this will, where it says GPS and internal, this basically, at the moment, the clock is running from the GPS time. But if you move it to internal, it will take the internal clock of the plane. And you might have to do this if you fly over areas where you get GPS jamming. So flying over the Middle East in particular, and some parts of Europe, you might get some more GPS jamming. So in that case, switch the clock to internal. But for today's flight, we'll just keep it in GPS. We're going to Australia, not expecting any GPS jamming. Make sure that the anti-skid is on as well. So from there, you will move down to make sure that thrust levers are idle. The parking brake is again where you want it to be, which is on, and that the cockpit door switch is in the normal position, which it is. Cool. From there, you can move to your MFD. So this is your MFD. We no longer have an MCDU. It's called an MFD. And yeah, you will start setting this up. So the first thing you'd actually do is go on the ATC com page. However, unfortunately, that's not yet active. So it's not yet active on this fly-by-wire. A380, but you'd do that, and yeah, you'd have to do a few things there, which I'm not going to dive too deep into now because there's no point. Also go on serve, check the transponder is on standby, and this, yeah, so this surveillance page basically looks at your transponder, TCAS, your weather radar, and terrain system as well. And then from serve you can go to init. So as you requested the flight plan earlier, you can see all the details are correct in here. The trip wind, well, we can't upload the wind at the moment, but let's see. If we go on here, we should be able to get average wind component. That's P031, so that's basically plus 31, so a tailwind of 31. So let's put in T, so click on it, it goes blue, T31. And then if we click away, there we go, tail 31. So that gives us the average wind component. Usually we would upload the wind ourselves, but we don't have that function. Cool. And then moving on to, basically we just work all our way down here for now. So IRS, and we want to make sure that all the IRSs are aligned, which they are now. And then you don't need to click back on the init, you just click return, and then it brings you back there. Departure. So we are planning to depart from, let's have a look, going from runway 34 right, Bundu to Echo. So we've got 34 right, Bundu to Echo. Okay, that's interesting. So it's not recognizing that SID. Okay, it's recognizing that one. Okay, interesting. It's not recognizing the SID that we want to do. Okay, let's just stick with Dembo 3 now for now. So we'll insert that, and then insert temporary, and it's in there. Back to init, and then navigates. So basically now you could select any navigates that you'd like to use. Typically you'd keep it in like auto tuning. However, if you want to deselect any navigates, or you want to select any for perhaps a non-standard engine out SID, now is the time to do so. But today, out of Doha, we're just going to keep it auto-tuned. So leave that for now. Back to return, fuel and load page. So now we put in the zero fuel weight CG. So if we head to cool. So it's this page here, and we're planning for 334. We'll round that up to 334.4. 334.4 with a CG of 36.42. So 334. 334.4. 36.4. That was right, wasn't it? 36.4. Block we are planning today, fuel-wise, we are planning for 176.7. Let me just make sure that's correct. 176.7, correct. Cool. So 176.7. And we've got 409 passengers, which is correct as well. Also, on this active fuel and load page, we will adjust the other figures. So for the taxi, we are expecting to have 998, so around up to 1 ton. Alternates to get to Melbourne is 10, we'll call that 11. Final reserve, we will call that 4.9. So it kind of gives you some rough figures, but you'll need to update this from your flight plan. Great, everything else is correct, and that is all we need to do on the fuel and load page. hit return, and then takeoff performance. So here's where we would insert the figures that we calculated on the FlyTops takeoff performance application. However, we don't have that today, so I'm going to put in some other figures from the flight plan. Okay, so now the takeoff performance is inserted from the flight plan, and this is the speeds that it's come up with flaps 1 for takeoff. And then at the moment you leave the THS4 blank, and I will get back to that in a bit, but for now we leave it blank, and we continue with the rest of the performance parts for the FMS. Thrust reduction and acceleration altitudes can be adjusted if you are, depending on what noise abatement you're using. But for Doha, we'll just keep it as it is. But just bear in mind, if you're using depends on what airport you're departing from. You might be using NADP1, NADP2, or NADP-A or NADP-B. So yeah, just bear that in mind. And yeah, now we'll continue to the climb page. So at the climb page, you want to check that the cost index is at 36. And this derated climb, none. So in the real world, either we will select a derated climb depending on how heavy we are, or we'll leave it in auto derate. Very rare we'll actually keep it as none, but maybe for the really long flights, 15 or 16 hours, we won't select a climb derate. Basically, the whole point of derated climb is to preserve engine life, which obviously saves money. It does actually burn a little bit more fuel, but the preservation of engine life saves a lot more money than that extra fuel burn. Change the transition altitude if required. Out of Doha it is 13,000 feet, so that's fine, we can keep that. And heading over to the cruise page, here you'll want to put in your step altitudes. Now for this flight today, as you can see, we do have some step altitudes where it says FL steps, OTHH 330, and then everything from here. So you can see we're going to 350, 370, and then 390. However, we are not able to put this in on step out. So what I'll do for the flight is eventually I'll just basically do the step altitudes myself. Why do we do this? It's because obviously it will be quite heavy at the start, so we're limited to a lower flight level. You can see the recommended max is 360, but as we burn more fuel we become lighter and we can fly at higher flight levels. So yeah, that's why that step altitudes exists. It's something that we use all the time on the 380, but for today's flight unfortunately we can't use it, but I'm sure it will come in at some point. Cool, so that's what we need to do for the performance. Hit return, and it brings you back to the init page. Then route summary, you can have a check on just to see that your route is correct, and it matches the one on the flight plan. So we'll now click active and flight plan, and here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tidy this up. So I'm going to go to plan, and I'm going to scroll down, and obviously we had to put a different departure in. So it goes Denver, Bundu. Is it? Okay, what I'll do is after Denver we'll make a right turn. So going up, and I'll just delete this. So click on it, delete, and then you can clear the discontinuity as well. Should be able to. Okay, from Dembo, insert next waypoint, click down, Bundu, insert temporary. It does get a little bit of getting used to, but actually once you get used to it, it's a lot nicer to use than the 320. So yeah, if you want something from a waypoint, you just click on it, and then you get all of these options. So you can go from present position direct to. So if you want to fly directly to that waypoint, you can do it. Or you can insert the next waypoint. All these options. You can delete the waypoint. You can put a hold in. You can look at the airways and then change the airways from that waypoint. Overfly, enable the alternate. If you want to divert, put in a new destination. Add any constraints. So yeah, you've got loads and loads of choices here. Cool, so that is fixed, and we also need to put the arrival in Adelaide, so let's have a look what we are going to be doing. So we're going to be going off runway 23, recab 8 Zulu. Let's see if we can put that one in. 23, ILS 23, start is recab 8 Zulu, and via gully. In temporary flight plan and insert that. That's my Siri going. Yeah, so once you've inserted that, you will now have your full flight plan, and you want to make sure that the time and distance match up. So 6274, it might be slightly off because we used a different departure. So distance 6254, that's fine. And 13 hours and 5 minutes is 12 hours 29. The reason why that's off is because of the winds. But as long as that distance is pretty much on, if we could uplink the winds, then that time would be correct as well. Cool, so back to active. Performance we've gone through, fuel and load we've gone through, and the inits we've gone through. On the position, we will check the monitor will basically check our GPS and IRS performance. What are the ones we need? The nav aids we've gone through, IRS we have also gone through as well. Secondary, now unlike the 320, the 380 actually has 3 secondary pages, which is really cool. So secondary 1, you'll put in, usually we'd put in just a return to our departure airport or a takeoff alternate. So if it worked, I would just basically put just an ILS approach to land back onto runway 34 right or 34 left in Doha, with all the performance figures, the minima, the go around altitudes, everything like that. And then that would be secondary 1. Secondary 2 would be just a copy of the current flight plan, and then secondary 3 will just leave blank. We can use secondary 3 to uplink any flight plan via ACARS or things like that, but generally speaking, secondary 3 we leave blank. And that is pretty much it. That is the setup of the FMS. The data at the moment doesn't have too much available. It has the status page. Debug page is just a flight sim thing, but we've already checked out the status page as well. Cool. So just one final thing. It would be to set the cleared altitude for runway 34 right and our departure. So it's Dembo 3, which is going to be, we'll call it 7,000, sorry, 4,000 actually. So first hard altitude, which is 4,000 feet for this. So 4,000 set there, and that's all we need to do now. At this point, the pilot monitoring would have come back from their walk around. They would also look through the box. They would cross-check everything, basically what we've done, and they'd cross-check the flight plan with their flight plan and the performance figures that I've inserted. They would check with their performance figures as well. So once they've done that, they'll say that they're happy with that, and then we will move over here and we will set the loudspeaker to about the 12 o'clock position. We'll then come over, set the correct QNH, and we will say I've got QNH 1012 reading 20 feet, and they'll check theirs, and we'll also check it on the ISIS here. And it needs to be within 20 feet for both PFDs, the tolerance in terms of difference on reading, and within 30 feet the difference between what's on my PFD and what's on the ISIS. Cool, so once that's done, we'll press all 4 corners here. That's what we usually do for now. Could put traffic as well, and yeah, and then they'll also do the same. So that's done, and also I'll press the flight director, so I'll get dash 4000 dash dash. That's what we need to do up on here. And now once that's done, we will do an oxygen test. So we'll make sure that the interphone is up, which it is. We can hear, so we want, yeah, so this switch here, we want it up. And we want to select interphone on there so we can hear it. And we'll say to the ground staff, we're doing an oxygen test, so stay off the headset. And then we test the oxygen by pressing this one here, which we can't press at the moment. Then a yellow flag should appear, and then we'll press another one, it again with this red one, and then again the yellow flag should appear. There'll also be a sound from the loudspeaker, which is the loud sound, which is why we tell the ground staff to stay off the headset. That's the oxygen test, and then finally we can do a briefing. So we would talk about the expected taxi route and the threats associated with departure. We would talk about anything that we're going to do differently, and just generally things to look out for, and how we're going to be flying it. If we're going to be using automation, what FCU modes we're going to be using, what FMA modes we can expect, and then also going through the emergency briefing as well, such as an RTO, an engine failure on takeoff, and all those things. So that is pretty much the briefing complete. So once we've done that, we can expect a load sheet to come through, and this load sheet we can get from the NSS page from the OIT, and on this load sheet it will confirm to us various different things, such as, if I go on the fuel and load page here, it will confirm the final zero fuel weight now that all the passengers have been loaded on, all the bags have been loaded. It will confirm the zero fuel weight CG and the block fuel now that that fuel figure is final, and it will also confirm the takeoff weight, landing weights, some of the fuel figures, and it will also give us the THS4. And so let's just say in this case, on the payload, I believe, if we switch to gross weight CG, it's 40.61. So we're going to put that in here. Let's put in 40.6, and that should be within 1% of the gross weight CG that we can see here as well. So we're happy with that. We can see that it is, and the THS takeoff THS4 42.7, that should actually be aligned with this. So I'm not too sure why that's out. I may have to change that just using the trim, perhaps later on, so we can see what we can do about that later. But for now, that's all done. We've confirmed everything. We will do, there's a cross-check with avionics function on the takeoff performance. Again, this is more type rating stuff, but it basically just means that the OIT communicates with the FMS, and it makes sure that what we've calculated is what lines up and what correlates with with what's in the FMS. So now that that's done, we can get a clearance, and we'd say that the clearance, we've been cleared for the Dembo 3 departure to Adelaide, squawking, we'll call it 4211, and from there we can do a welcome on board PA if we need to, or we might just delegate it to the cabin crew. And once we've done that, we can do a checklist. So just before, we'll put the bleed on, and we'll get rid of the external powers. That's all good. They can disconnect. So the APU bleeds on now, and now we can do a checklist. So checklist, we press this checklist button here, and this brings up the checklist. So to activate the cockpit preparation checklist, press the tick, and then it reads gear pins and covers, remove. We have confirmed that they have been removed. Tick. Fuel quantity, we've got 176,700 kilos. Tick. Barrow ref. Seatbelts can come on now that fueling is complete. Barrow ref. QNH 1012. They will read it their side as well. And tick. So do you see, with the seatbelts on, if I have it off, it will now say that I need to switch it on, and I can't tick that because it will only go once I put it on. So that's the checklist complete. They'll announce that, you respond with checked, and then you tick it and it gets removed. So that is it basically. That's how we set up the cockpit ready for our departure. And now we can begin with the pushback phase. Okay, so now we are ready for push and start. So all the checklists have been completed. We've done the welcome on board announcement, and we've cross-checked all our performance. So we're ready to go. So let's call for push and start. So the call will be Airbus 123. Request push and start from stand Charlie 12. They'll say clear to push and start facing north from Charlie 12. We'll read that back, and then the next acronym I like to use is LDVPST. So that stands for lights. So we'll put the beacon on. D is doors. So I want to check a few things here. Firstly, on the door page, all the slides are armed. So that's 5 on the main left, 3 on the upper left, 3 on the upper right, and 5 on the main right. Checking that the cockpit door is shut, and also finally I also like to check that the window is not showing any red clip here, and with the green it shows that the window is locked. Let's close that for now. V means video. So here I would set up the ONS, which I have already. So to get the ONS, you just need to reduce the ND range selector to zoom, and then you can actually zoom in even more if you turn it to left more. Also, by pressing the taxi push button, that should bring up a new screen on your where your PFD is, and it will show an external view. So you have a camera on the tail of the plane and a camera on the belly of the plane, and this gives you a nice external view. I like to use it for the pushback as well. You can use it just for taxiing if you like, but I like to use it for the pushback. Just enhances your situational awareness. It's a really fantastic tool by Airbus, because the A380 is so big that if you didn't have it, it does kind of, you'll see it's just a little bit harder to taxi, but this makes life easier when you have that. So unfortunately it's not on the fly-by-wire yet, but I'm sure it will come at some point. So that's V, and then so LDV, P stands for the pressure. Check the body accumulator pressure indication basically, and that it's in the green band. PS, you click on serve, and you want to click default settings. Then on TCAS above, that should be in TARA. Transponder should be on with the appropriate squawk. The weather radar looks like they don't have it yet, as with the TORS, the terrain system, but that's all you can do for now. So that's what you want to do. And then finally T for thrust levers. Had a little bit of an issue on my thrust levers here. I think that's just my thrust levers. But yeah, you want to make sure that they're idle and that you want to make sure that the thrust levers are idle and that the reverser is stowed as well. Cool. So once we've done that, we can say that we can ask for the before start checklist. So heading back to the checklist button where it says before start, tick, and it goes as follows. Parking brake is on. Takeoff speeds and thrust. Hit the performance. You want to make sure that all your speeds and the flex is in there as well, which it is. Check, and they'll check theirs as well. And that's before start checklist completes. Tick. Okay, that's all done. Beacon is on, and we're all good to go. So heading back to the
This parking is
function.
too small for your aircraft.
Continue pushback, and we want to go nose left. Let's see how that works.
Release parking brakes, please.
Okay, so the call is release parking brake.
Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
Fantastic. Also, the avail lights is a glitch. I can't seem to get rid of them, but they'll go once the pushback commences. Cool, let's bring these up. Okay, so we have been cleared to start our engines as well. So we've been cleared by ATC and by the ground staff. So let's go ahead and do that. So to start the engines, we go engine start selector to ignition start. This brings up this page. And now usually we should be waiting for around 30 psi to start the engines. But this seems to be stuck at 15. So starting 1, and this varies from company to company and aircraft to aircraft, but at my company we start engines 1, then 2, and then 3 and 4 together. And sometimes the reason for this can be just the APU bleed demand. But yeah, that's how we do it here. So this is the start sequence of engine number 1. And we see it's a veil. Cool, and we can start number 2. So you can see the igniter A
Please
there.
set parking brakes.
Cool, so the call is set parking brake. We'll look outside first, make sure we're not moving, which we're not. And we can set the parking brake.
Waiting your confirmation for a good engine start.
So we'll give that confirmation once we've started all engines. So 56% N2, start valve should close. So that's just off slightly. So veil. Cool, and now we can start 3 and 4. So let's start 3 and 4. Yeah, that reverser 2 is just again my thrust lever not working. As you can see, it does take a while with 4 engines and the way we start them. It's always going to take some time. but we should be monitoring the start sequence, make sure no limits are exceeded. Cool, and that is 4 good engine starts. So after the 4 engines have been started, the flow is as follows. Engine start select goes to normal, APU bleed is off. The anti-ice, we don't require it today, but that's when we put it on if we needed it. And APU, we don't need it either, that can come off. Those are PF's actions. For PM, the spoilers are armed, rudder trim is set to neutral. Flaps can be set to the position which they are in 1. Usually you'd be able to see the rudder trim here, however we can't, so we'll just have to view it on the flight control page. You can see the rudder trim is at neutral, and the status page we'll check as well. You can tell then confirm good engine
Cockpit to
start.
ground. We have a good engine start. You can disconnect.
And now, whilst they're walking away and disconnecting everything,
Unlocking gear.
what we're going to do is we're going to do the flight control check. So for the flight controls, pilot flying will go first, moving it fully up, which PM will confirm. Full down,
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed.
neutral, full left,
Left is clear. Right is clear.
full right, neutral, and then we'll test the rudders. So for the rudder, we want to press the pedal disconnect, and then rudder slowly, rudder full left, rudder full right, neutral. Then PM will check their flight controls. Let's fill up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral. Now you've checked that, you will check that the ground staff have disconnected, that the tow truck is clear, and that they've got the pin as well. We can see that they have done that, and then we can call for the after start checklist. So again, checklist, after start, we've got anti-ice, which is off, not required. Tick that. Oh, let me try again. So yeah, so anti-ice is off, and that's the after start check is complete. Tick that, and it clears. Great, and now we are ready for taxi. So we will request that now. So to request taxi, we'll say Airbus 123, ready for taxi. And then they will give us instruction, probably something like along the lines of taxi Whiskey 1, Whiskey 4, hold short of Juliet, and we will do that. So we'll firstly confirm that all is clear on the left, all is clear on the right. The nose goes to taxi, and the runway turn off and camera light comes on as well. Just going to come up a bit here, and we'll release the parking brake. And thrust wise, so previously it's been quite required a lot amount of thrust to get going, and that is the case here as well. Now you're not supposed to exceed 15% on the 380, but I am just going to do this here because otherwise we're never going to move. But in the real world, you wouldn't, you're not supposed to exceed 15%. I'm going to set 20 just to start going, but But yeah, don't exceed 15% if you're flying this in the real world. Cool, the next check is a brake check, so just gently press on the brakes and the call is pressure 0. The pilot monitoring is looking here, making sure that that pressure is at 0. Again, I'm going to increase the thrust. This is something that they'll probably need to fix fly-by-wire, because yeah, this is too much thrust. So come around to the left, slight oversteer, obviously because it's such a big plane, so we have to oversteer it a little bit. So then they'll clear us, Airbus 123 at Whiskey 4, turn right onto Juliet, right to Sierra, hold short of Charlie, which we will do. Cool, so we're continuing in a straight line now. So we don't have to worry about turns. Our workload is nice and low. So what we'll do now is we will do a little just pre-departure briefing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check the PFD. If I'm on the ETACS, the external taxi aid camera system, I'll just come off that, check the PFD, make sure we've got the speeds and the FMA, and we're climbing to 4,000 feet. We'll just talk briefly about our clearance and our non-standard engine out SID, and then after that I'll get the pilot monitoring to do the taxi flows. So for that, you just arm the RTO like that, check the squawk is good, which it is, takeoff config, and that will go takeoff config normal, and from that I'll ask for the taxi checklist. Let's just increase the speed a bit more. So the taxi checklist goes as follows. Flight controls have been checked, so we'll tick. Flap setting got config 1+F, and they'll read theirs as well. Radar is on. At this point, I'll put the weather radar on. They'll usually go for terrain, so tick that. And that's the taxi checklist complete. Okay, so obviously we'll make sure that we do not go past this point here. So just bring it to a stop here. Again, looking outside, not moving. Parking brake is set. Cool, so at this point, whilst we've got the whole short clearance, we no longer need the ONS really. So what I'll do is I will set that to probably 10 initially, or 20. And we can start thinking about our takeoff, might be just running through my RTO actions as well. And then we get the clearance, Airbus 123, runway 34 via Alpha, line up and wait. So we'll read that back. We'll confirm that the approach area and the departure area is clear. The strobes come on, and the parking brake is released. And I'll also probably, let's make sure that comes to idle. Whoops. Again, those thrust levers. I need new thrust levers, really. Cool. So we'll increase thrust, and we have been cleared to line up and wait. So at this point, I would go back to the PFD as well. I'll no longer be using the ETACs. Some people like to use it to line up as well and then switch it off. I think it comes off automatically anyway after 60 knots. So if you set takeoff thrust and you forget about it, chance of that happening pretty low, but yeah, it comes off after 60 knots. Anyway, so the takeoff runway is confirmed, the approach path is clear, you check that the packs are on. This will be pilot monitoring. And as well, they would probably tell the cabin crew to take their seats for departure. So 7 knots is more than enough to line up with. Okay, and then finally we get the call saying Airbus 123, wind is calm, runway 34 right, cleared for takeoff. So put the lights on, these can go to takeoff, and then it's a case of, are you ready? Start the chronometer. 25% initially, and then move it all the way forward to flex. So we got man flex, SRS, auto thrust blue. Thrust is set. .100 knots is checked. V1. Rotate. So 3 degrees seconds, 12.5 degrees. Positive climb, gear up, nav. And we'll go AP1. So let's climb. Thrust climb. And TCAS standby, we'll just wait on that for now. Let's continue our climb to 8,000 feet. And now you see the S speed is quite close to this overspeed, so it should auto retract. Let's see if it does it. Yep, there's the auto retract. And we'll climb unrestricted to 8,000 feet, so open climb. And we'll go flap 0, speed checked, flap 0. From that, the actions are to disarm the spoilers, turn off these lights here, keep the landing lights on now. And now this does climb like a rocket, I've seen, so we'll keep it at something like 2,500 feet. Because if I leave it in open climb, it will just shoot up to something crazy. So that TCAS standby, let's just make sure it's doing the right turn. Let's fly heading 015, or correction 040. So that TCAS standby, I think that's just a sim glitch because I've seen it a few times. So just put it back to TAR8. So serve page TAR8. Cool, now I'll show you quite another cool function. So let's continue the climb now to 12,000 feet. So if I expand this here, let's say I want to go to Eggpog. Okay, I should be able to click on it. Okay, in the real world you can click on this and you can do directly to that. No worries. If I go on flight plan, I'm going to go to ASNAX. Click on it, it's from present position direct to insert direct to, and now we can see it's back in nav and going directly to ASNAX. So yeah, keeping it, I'll just increase the VS a little bit, but this is way, it's hugely overpowered. We'll continue to climb flight level 200s. So now we're passing flight level 100s. We can speed up a little bit more, so I'll reduce the vertical speed. Or if you go open climb, it will reduce because it's targeting the speed. So it will reduce the vertical speed there as well. So now we passed 10,000, we're climbing to 20,000. The landing lights can come off, and the seatbelt signs, if it's calm, can go to auto. We'll also probably check our performance page saying that we plan to cruise at 330 and we're recommending max 360, optimum 345. So we'll keep 330 for now. That's a good cruising altitude for us initially. And as you can see, look, 4,000 feet and we're at 506 tons. So it's pretty, it would keep climbing. So I'm just going to keep it back to 3,000. That's a lot more realistic. Yeah. Okay, our transition altitude is 13,000 feet, so that's going to start flashing now so we can set standards. So in the real world you can push it, but for this you pull it for some reason. And yeah, we've got standard cross-checked, passing 136 now, and flight level is 200 blue. Let's say we've been given increase to 315. And that's it, guys. That is the full video on the departure procedure for the Airbus A380. I know it's still in its early days and there's a few things missing, but the fly-by-wire team have done an absolutely incredible job designing this. Such a complex aircraft, so many things to get right, so many things that they could get wrong, but I think they've nailed it. And the fact that it's free really tells you a lot about the people working there, the passion that they have for it. And for someone like me who flies this as for my job, it's it's simply incredible to see the level of accuracy and detail that has gone into this. So thank you so much to the fly-by-wire team, and thank you as well to everyone watching this video, and also your support on the channel. We have got an A320 series in the making. We are continuing it. It's an in-depth type rating series, certainly a lot more in-depth than this, and we're looking to give you the best quality of training that we can. So for that, we have gone away. It's been quite some time since we put out a video. There are a few reasons for this. So firstly, obviously, I moved from the 320 to the 380, so I wanted just to fully focus on that and my training and getting used to that, and also just what we're planning on doing. We've made some videos, but we're just trying to package it together and release it all at once. So once I have more details about that, I will let you know. But thank you for your patience, and thank you for your continued support. We read every comment. It's so nice to see, and it's something we love doing. We really do love making these videos. So yeah, you guys are awesome. Please keep enjoying your flying, whether it's in real life or on flight simulator. But please keep enjoying. Anyway, that's all from me now. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.